Today is a huge, monumental day.
Oh boy.
It is the first time we are ranking the 2024 Dynasty rookie running back class.
Let's go.
Badaki and I have spent the last month, any of our free
Oh
time,
my goodness. It's
scouting
been a
this
while.
class. Literally, anytime we stop doing any work for our channels, it's straight to scouting and just cram as much scouting as you can get in. But we are ready and prepared to talk about this class. We are very excited to talk about this class. If you've got 2024 draft picks, hopefully this video is going to be helpful. And I will just say, as we're about to get into it, keep in mind that this list will change. It is
100%.
fluid. This is the beginning. We tried to watch about 3 to 5 games for each of these names. We weren't able to see everything that these guys are capable of, but we are prepared to talk about them. And of course, things will change. We don't even have testing or anything that yet. It's not even the year 2024. Let's go ahead and start in tier 1. And Badaki, you and I were on a call yesterday, and we were talking about recording this video, and I said to you, there is one player in particular that I am genuinely thrilled to talk about. Like, I cannot explain how excited I am to talk about this player, and I didn't say the name, and you said, if it's who I think it is, he just tore his ACL, and I said, stop it.
Yeah.
You better stop it right now, or I'm going to physically cry. My RB1 in the class was going to be Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah.
Let's start there. How did you
was-
feel about this guy? Maybe we have a moment of silence. I mean, he came out of nowhere. Bijan Robinson leaves Texas, and this absolute gem, what I would think might have been the first running back off the board in the NFL draft, comes out of absolutely nowhere. Now, he's not, like a 3-star recruit or anything. He's a 4-star recruit. But, man, I was so excited to talk about this guy all offseason, and now I'm not even sure that he declares.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he declares. Kind of like what you mentioned, running back out of Texas. He was coming in. He looked like the full, genuinely, I think one of the top 2 full packages coming out of this class. And he didn't even see the light until this year. He was hidden behind, like we said, Bijan, Big old Roscoe. Bijan. Exactly. Bijan Robinson, Rashawn Johnson, Big old Roscoe, I like to call him. And my guy comes out of this backfield and shines, looks like a superstar, tears his ACL. He was my RB1 as well. I told you yesterday, I was flipping back and forth between 2 people to be my RB1, but he is the guy that I was hoping to come in and be the. I think he was the only.
He made me extremely excited about this class.
Exactly. He was the only person that made you excited. He was the only person.
I don't feel that way. I don't think he was the only person, but he made me feel like, oh my God, this is actually not a bad class.
For me, it was more like I'm putting everything in Jonathan Brooks.
Oh yeah, same. Like I was like, that's my dude.
Yeah.
I'm a rock with him.
Uh-huh.
I have literally a entire book worth of notes about why I love this player, but now it seems pointless to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say this. If you have 2025 picks, I think he probably does declare the year after. Maybe in 2025. Still look out for him. That class, I don't even know the much depth that goes into that class, so maybe he is going to hinder himself because of how maybe the talent is going to be better. But I think what was different here is that he clearly stood out, in my opinion, between a lot outside of all these running backs, and he would have easily been a top 50 pick in the NFL draft.
I agree. He would have easily been top 50, early second round maybe.
And that's just not the case anymore, unfortunately.
But moving on to now what will be my RB1 in the class. And I believe I'll just say this. I think there are 3 names that I was prepared to be in tier 1. Jonathan Brooks was one of them. And I had them all in my scouting grades very, very close.
Okay.
And I think they all presented something a little bit different. But my RB1 in the class will now be Trey Benson.
Okay, Trey Benson. Interesting.
Trey Benson is my RB1 in this class.
Trigger Trey.
And I heard the name that you're going to say, so let's go ahead and put him up there because he is absolutely in that tier 1 with me. It's not like me disrespecting Travion Henderson. It's just me putting respect on Trey Benson. I think these are 2 very good names. And again, maybe Travion Henderson, when the process is done, when we've had, testing and everything, maybe he ends up being the RB1 for me, but it is very close. I'm a huge fan of Trey Benson. If you guys are watching my 2024 content before the actual college football season this year, you would have probably heard me talk about him a lot. But to me, Trey is the complete running back. size, speed, burst, short area quickness, specifically strength through contact. This guy is just different with the way that, he cannot be tackled. I mean, arm tackles are an absolute joke for this kid. If you're going to try and arm tackle him, you might as well just sit on the bench because it's not going to do a single thing for you. But he maintains a high amount of speed while being able to shake off any sort of contact. I mean, it is very, very special to look at. In my opinion, his vision is something that really sets him apart from some of these other names. At this young part of the scouting process, he impressed me the most. And look, we aren't able to watch all, 10, 11, 12 games that have happened
so far. Yeah.
We aren't able to watch every single game, so I'm sure there's things that we have missed. But at this point, with the amount of film that I have watched, he's impressed me the most with his vision, specifically in the second level of a play. After, your offensive line has given you a lane to run through, what do you do after that? How do you exploit the second level of the defense? I think it's very special, and I'm not saying that his entire game reminds me of this player, but specifically his vision, it reminds me of when I was watching Breece Hall out of Iowa State. So specifically his vision, and then to me, his long run speed does not get the respect that it genuinely deserves. He does not get kind of put up there as one of like the speedsters in the class, but very few people, like, here's the thing, if you guys are going to put on some film, you're going to see someone at 190 pounds run, and they look so fast. This guy is 223 pounds, and in my opinion, he has home run speed. According to Cam Mellor, by the way, of College Football Network, no player in college football has hit 21 miles per hour or greater in a game more than Trey Benson. He's done it 3 times this year, which honestly, it lines up with what I've personally seen on film. I think his burst, it's very noticeable. His breakaway percentage at the time of recording stands at 52.1%. That is the 6th best amongst running backs who have had at least 90 carries. By the way, breakaway percentage, meaning the percentage of his attempts that went for more than 15 yards, 52%. I think he's a good pass catcher. He doesn't get enough opportunities, but every time I saw him with a reception, he made something really special happen. And he's a play extender. He's a play extender as a receiver. You get the ball into this guy's hands, I could imagine being a nightmare as a screenplay. And also, he played really well versus the SEC, specifically LSU. That was the first game of the year. The numbers don't blow you away, but if you watch that game, he was turning a lot of lemons into lemonade during that game against that good defensive front. So I'm a big fan of Trey Benson. It's if I was to give you a pro comp, Javonte Williams came to mind. David Montgomery came to mind a little bit. Rashad Penny. And Rashad Penny might not sound exciting, but if you guys were scouting Rashad Penny, he was a first-round pick. He was a first-round pick for a reason. Rashad Penny was an exciting player. Mm-hmm. Those are my ceiling comps. My floor comp for him would be like a Dameon Pierce, a Tyler Algier type player, but I think he's better than those two guys. So Trey Benson would be my top, and I think that's probably not going to be consensus, so that's why I wanted to take a second and just explain why before I get some hate in the comments.
No. Look, I mean, I can understand all those things that you said. I think one of the biggest things, in my opinion, that separates him from someone like a Travion Henderson for me is his size, his ability that he plays really physical in that next level, in my personal opinion. Look, everything that you said, you hit the nail on the head. I like Trey Benson for all those reasons. I think the reason why I like Travion Henderson a little bit more is because of how small, not small, but how I envisioned him being utilized in the NFL.
I get that.
I think
in PPR formats, I can see why Travion Henderson is maybe more appealing.
It gets me excited because what happens is that he reminds me of an Austin Eckler type of running back that can be utilized. He is somebody that can take. One of the biggest things that you said for Travion Henderson, he is a play extender, and I think that is the same thing for
I agree.
I totally agree. Travion Henderson as well. You put him in space, he goes to the next level. Obviously, there are different things that these guys struggle with. And I think maybe that's what I should really hit on here, in my personal opinion, because I do believe these prospects are really similar. And I think everything that you said, you can really echo. Different. at least for me,
they're similar in my grades, but I think they bring something different.
For me, they bring something different, but I think in a fantasy output, I think they can deliver the same thing, and I think a lot of people love that idea. So for me, what I would like to say is that Travion Henderson, one of the things that I didn't like about him, it was just more that he takes too much time
I agree.
in short areas where he needs to just hit the hole, because why? You have the speed. You have the speed to take that hole into the next level. And I think that's why he doesn't play too physical at times, where he can just go into that first gap and then, break a couple tackles or two, because you have the small agility. He's 5'10", 212 pounds to break that tackle. Like when you think of Austin Eckler when he hits the hole. If Austin Eckler is constantly hesitating when he has that first gap, then we're saying, what the hell are you doing? And that's what Travion Henderson is doing right now. So that's something that he can improve on. But when you think of his whole overall game, that is something that I'm extremely excited about. I mean, obviously, 5-star recruit coming out of college or coming out of high school here.
The belle of the ball.
He is the guy. Class. The only thing that also worries me is the injuries. The injuries have been kind of a thing here. If I'm not mistaken, he did deal with a broken foot. He did miss a couple games this year. How are these NFL teams going to be looking at him coming in?
I agree. Sorry, I was just going to say one thing just quickly there, because his freshman year, it was hard not to comp him to Christian McCaffrey at that point.
Oh, 100%.
Now, he hasn't necessarily retained that status because of the injuries. It's not necessarily his fault. I will say the last couple games for Travion Henderson, though, I mean, I was looking at my scouting process thinking, like, am I sure he's not the RB1 of the class? I'm like, no, stick to your guns right now. Things can change. But I agree with you. One of the things I noticed, like, to me, when I watched Trey Benson, maybe it's just my bias, there wasn't anything in particular that I thought to myself, like, he's actually not very good at that part of his game. And again, maybe I haven't watched enough, but with Travion, there was a couple things in particular, and I'm glad you mentioned his vision, because I wouldn't say that like his vision is a problem.
I don't think so
90% of the time he's doing the most with what's been given to him. But I did write down he's a little too patient at times, and I think it's because of the athleticism that he has. He's always trying to find like, okay, that's an option, but what is the actual best option on the play? And sometimes he actually misses out on those chunky yards. So I think sometimes his patience pays off, but there are other times, for example, in the Notre Dame game, where he just didn't make the most of what the offensive line gave him. And I'm glad you mentioned the physicality too, because if he is truly 215 pounds, with some of the games I've watched, I'm not sure he is. I could be wrong, but I don't think he plays up to 215 pounds at all times. And we've talked about streaky running backs in the past in certain areas of their game, certain traits of their game. With Travion, I think his physicality is his streakiest part, because there are times I'm like, damn, he just demolished this kid. And there are other times where I'm like, where's the physicality on the play? Like, extend that a couple of yards. Like, so, and the only other thing I would say is pass pro. I don't think he is going to be viewed as a reliable pass pro coming in type back. So that's concerning, but I think that can be coached up. But yeah, as a pass catcher, I mean, incredible route running, great hands, great after the catch. I could see him being a top 10 running back in receptions at some point, in his career. Great 100%. Speed. He's a home run hitter.
100%.
He reminds me a little bit of Etienne and Walker, purely in the sense of they could have 20 carries in a game, and it's just one of them that goes to the house. Do you
exactly.
know?
100%.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what he reminds me of. But my favorite part of his game, I'll just say, and then I'll hand it over to you for any other comments, is his elusiveness. By far, his best trait is his elusiveness. Hesitations, jukes, jump cuts, contact balance, quick stop-start, change of direction stuff, moves laterally really, really well. 8 times out of 10, he's going to make you miss in a one-on-one scenario. So I'm a big fan of his. My ceiling comps, because I don't think there is a good comp in today's NFL personally.
Really?
I could be wrong.
Okay.
But I was trying to really think about it, and you might appreciate this. Do you remember Tiki Barber?
Yeah, come on, baby.
Giants legend. He reminds me a little bit of Tiki Barber, and then I also went back and I thought of, who does he remind me of? I don't know if you guys remembered when we had Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. That combo was deadly in Carolina. He reminds me a little bit of D'Angelo Williams, kind of that elusive type back, but someone who can put up a lot of receptions. So Yeah, I think he goes in the second round of the NFL draft. He's a very talented player, and he could end up being the RB1 for me. By the way, from Virginia, 2 up, 2 down.
Hey, 2 up, 2 down. Talk it up.
You'd love to see it.
Yeah, look, I kind of mentioned it earlier. My comp to me is Austin Eckler.
Okay.
I remember seeing one of the first snaps of his game. I think the first game I watched was a Notre Dame game. And I said, how is this not Austin Eckler? He has the size, the way he runs, the way he catches the ball in the backfield. If Austin Eckler walks this year, I want everything in my being for Travion Henderson to go to the Los Angeles Chargers. I do agree. I can understand the Tiki Barber sentiment. I can see the thought process back in the day of Christian McCaffrey. But right now, you think of Austin Eckler. I mean, if we're just looking at the stats that we can see, he's saying 5'10", 212 pounds. I doubt he's 212. I do agree. Austin Eckler, 5'10", 200 pounds right now.
Sure.
That is eerily similar. Once again, I see everything in his game.
I definitely hear you.
So
I just don't. I think that the Eckler comp, in my opinion, doesn't give him enough credit as for the explosiveness that he has, and that's not disrespect to Eckler, but Eckler isn't the fastest running back you'll ever see.
No,
I think there's more speed in Travion's game than Eckler.
The thing is,
a couple differences.
When you think of the differences, you think of Travion Henderson being less physical and faster, and you think of Austin Eckler being a little bit slower, but a lot more physical. Exactly. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Anything else about this tier 1? This is going to be a long video. I hope people are buckled in for a lot of conversations. But you guys have to think about it. We've been scouting these guys for a month. We haven't told each other anything, and we're just letting it all out now in this format. But anything else you want to say before we move on?
No, I think this is perfectly fine. I love all three of these guys. I do have Travion one spot ahead of Trey Benson, but these guys are all in the same tier for me. I see them similarly in a fantasy output. How about that? Yeah. Obviously, they bring different things to a team. I think they could be top, 15, 20 running backs in the near future.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there is another running back that I did consider adding to tier 1. However, I think this is a player that I don't think is disrespectful. He's my RB3 in the class. Like, I'm trying to funnel my thoughts through the audience, but I don't think he's my RB3 in the class.
Okay.
Let's talk about Blake Corum. I don't think he's the same athlete that Trey Benson and Travion Henderson are, but these are three, in my opinion, three very, very different players. Blake Corum, a lot of people say his size is an issue. I don't believe that.
I don't think so either.
5'8", 213.
100%.
He plays like he is 230. I mean, the guy has this unique low center of gravity. And for as good as Trey Benson is through contact, you can say the same exact thing about Blake Corum. Now, the issue is this year, his numbers have not been good analytically. I mean, if you look at his yards after contact per attempt, it is way down there. I mean, he is 126th out of 130 running backs this year who have 100 attempts at 2.97 yards per carry. Yards after contact per attempt. He's only forced 14 missed tackles. That's 143rd. His breakaway percentage is in the hundreds. His elusiveness rating is 185th. So analytically, he has taken a huge hit. Now, I don't think that's a fair representation of what he is currently as a player, and we have to think more about traits rather than just the analytics. But this is why I said, I felt like he should have gone in the 2022 class, because you probably heard me say this a lot, guys. There's no way he was going to beat the 2022 year that he had. There's just no way he would be as efficient. His numbers would look better. He would put up that many yards. So he's going to put up a ton of touchdowns. I think he's a very talented player. I think the ceiling comps, I'll give people credit. I think he could be a Maurice Jones-Drew type player. I've heard that before.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
I see a little bit of Ray Rice.
Whoa. I'm joking.
On field.
I'm joking. No, it's a joke.
But the other thing I'll just say two other things quickly before I hand it to you is three things. Let's go through them quickly. He's going to be an older player. That doesn't concern me anymore. I don't really focus on that too much. It just doesn't matter, really. It matters for a second contract, but how long are you playing Dynasty? Are you really going to think about the year 2028? He will be 23 this month. He'll be 24 as a rookie. That's pretty old as a rookie.
It's a Najee Harris vibes, right?
Ramondre Stevenson vibes,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I think he's a very smart player. He has high IQ, like very, very smart. One of my knocks on him is his athleticism, but I think he makes up for it with his smarts. Definitely, in my opinion, the highest IQ of any running back in this class, by far. The way he attacks a defense, you can see there is a game plan in his head that is continually changing as he is kind of moving those feet. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a home run hitter. I don't think he has that kind of long run speed that a Trey Benson or a Travion Henderson have. But I could see him being a very efficient short yardage back, first and second down. I think he gives you a little bit in the passing game. And I like him overall. But I've seen a lot of people say he's the RB1 in the class, and I just can't get there. I think there's a distinction between that tier 1 and that tier 2.
Okay. Look, I do have Blake Corum in this tier as well. I would say this, I guess, just to kind of highlight the things that you did mention. I love the physicality, you know, the strength that he brings to a team when he does go out. And the thing that you mentioned a little bit earlier of how I actually think it helped him to go in this class, because
fair.
If he did
a weaker class,
it's a weaker class where it was a top heavier class a little last year where he would have fell. And look how all those other running backs that we loved last year, obviously a high science 2020, and we didn't really understand what was going to happen, and we loved and look at them now, like they were going third. If Blake went into that class and he would have been a 4th, 5th round pick, we'd be like, dang, such a talented guy after an amazing year. I think he could easily be going into this year maybe a day 3 type of guy.
You mean day 2, round 3?
Sorry, day 2, round 3, type of guy.
I agree.
Which is still a lot better than where he would have gone last year. Now, it does hinder him a little bit. I get what you're saying, putting the weight on, you know, time or age and time and carries. Injuries can kind of pile up there. But I do believe that it actually helps him to be a more of a better workload type of running back coming into the NFL, if that is the case. But I like Blake Corum.
Yeah, and I think like age concerns me a little bit more from a quarterback, because if you're dominating at like the age of 24 versus 19-year-olds, that's kind of concerning. But we have seen Blake Corum multiple years be really, really good. And in the span of fantasy football, okay, so what if you drafted a player who's 20 and they tear their ACL twice? What if you get a J.K. Dobbins instead of a Blake Corum because of their age? It's just like, did it matter? Did it really matter?
I get you.
So yeah, I mean, my comps, Maurice Jones-Drew, Ray Rice, that's my ceiling. My floor comp is more like a Dion Lewis type player. I think he's better than that. I almost wanted to say like Boston Scott even, but I think he's better than those names. But yeah, he's my RB3 at this moment.
Okay.
I have one other player in this class, or in this tier. What about you?
Yeah, I do have one other player in this tier, and I'll maybe, well, you go for it, and then let's see if it's the same person.
For me, that would be Marshawn Lloyd.
Exactly. Okay,
so we're on the same page. This is great.
Yeah,
we had a lot of disagreements on last year's class, so this is a breath of fresh air.
The class is a little bit different this year. So.
It is different, for sure. Marshawn Lloyd is, I mean, you could call him undersized. I don't really believe that's accurate. He's 5'9", 210. He's a 4-star recruit out of Maryland, the DMV area. Now, my concern with Marshawn Lloyd, because if you just purely look at analytics, you're going to be like, how is he not in tier 1, right? His breakaway percentage is 58%, second best amongst running backs who have at least 100 attempts. He has the second best elusive rating. His yards after contact per attempt is 4th. He has the number 1 yards per attempt at 7.8 with, a minimum of 100 attempts. But the concern for me is like, and maybe it's fair, maybe it's not, I'm always a little bit concerned about a Pac-12 running back. Okay. That's just something that's inbuilt into me. Maybe it's the wrong DNA. Maybe I need to, but just Pac-12 defenses do not scare me. Think about every time you guys have watched a Pac-12 game. Have you seen any defense? You have seen blowouts or shootouts rather, pretty much every time. Every time Caleb Williams plays, what's the score, right? I mean, genuinely think about that. What kind of defenses are these Pac-12 teams playing? What about Oregon? How many shootouts are they in? Name a Pac-12 team, right? Washington, for example. I just don't feel like the defense is the same as an SEC, as a Big Ten, where, these recruits, defensively, they know what the NFL is looking for, and they know where NFL players come from. That's why a lot of those top recruits are going to the SEC. They're going to the Big Ten. The Pac-12 is just not known as a very good defensive conference. So anytime I see a running back go off in the Pac-12, I discount it a little bit because of what we've seen historically. But now that I've got the bat out of the way, I will quickly say that Marshawn Lloyd is that lightning in a bottle type of running back.
Yeah.
His burst, his long run speed is special. I wrote that down. His burst is truly special. You probably agree with me. One thing I wrote is he cuts through his running lanes like a hot knife through butter.
Shout out. The analogies are 200 IQ this year. Talk it up. Keep going.
It is true. I mean, watch Marshawn Lloyd and you'll be like, yeah, that is a hot knife through butter. The long run speed, every game you're seeing it on display. There are multiple times where I'm like, I'm not sure anybody on that field is faster than this kid. Short area quickness, lateral agility, it's all very special. Make your man miss ability is all there. Nasty jump cut. Like, we'll leave you in a hospital type of jump cut. But I'm a fan of his. I'm not saying he's Devon Achane as a player. All I'm saying is it's a copycat league. And if someone's trying to find themselves, who's that guy that could get us 12 touches a game and really just be a difference maker? I think that's what Marshawn Lloyd could give you.
I completely agree. And one of the things you said was copycat league. And I've been kind of envisioning that this year in my rankings and how I'm seeing these players, not as a talent, but how NFL teams scout. A lot of things that I've learned this past year is that teams scout via traits. If you think of speed, if you think of the things that he can do, he can easily be plugged and play to any NFL team because of his speed, because of his lateral movement, because of his long speed. And that's exactly why Marshawn Lloyd is my RB, technically 3 in the class here.
You have him over Corum, okay.
I do have him over Corum.
I don't think that's crazy, honestly. Like, they are very close. It's like I think the tiers in those first 2 tiers are more important for me than necessarily where these guys are ranked.
Exactly.
Okay, we just realized that we are 30 minutes into this video and we've talked about 4 players. I hope you guys are kind of buckled in and ready for a lot of conversation. It's the first time. Give us some grace.
We're excited as well.
Yes. I have 1 player in tier 3, Badaki. I don't know where you stand.
Okay.
I have 1 player that I didn't feel like as a prospect is going to live up to the tier 2 guys, but I think he's better than my tier 4. That is Bucky Irving out of Oregon.
Okay. Okay.
Now, we might have some disagreements here, but Bucky Irving, to me, the versatility in today's NFL, I know he's 195 pounds, but we are seeing that matter less and less and less. I mean, we have talked about it over the last couple of years with wide receivers, how it's becoming less important, your size. And I think we're starting to see that as well in the NFL with modern backs, at or around a 200-pound mark being successful. But I think he has a lot of versatility. I think an offensive coordinator would kind of be very excited about thinking about the ways that they could use a guy like Bucky Irving. Great burst, short area quickness. He's a little bit similar to Marshawn Lloyd in his game. I just think he's a better pass catcher. I think he's a very talented receiver. You could scheme up a lot for this guy in space. He's a good 3rd down back, dynamic player, good pass catching prowess.
Yeah.
I could see him become like an integral 3rd down back with a sprinkle of carries, kind of like James White, the New England kid, and he's older than me. The New England back in his kind of heyday with a little bit more burst and explosiveness, but I can't put him in tier 2 because the size is slightly a concern, right? I mean, it isn't ideal for you to be 195 pounds. And then again, he plays in the Pac-12, so I don't know how much I can really put into
Put a weight on that? Okay.
And the last thing I will say as well is Oregon's game, the way that they play, I don't know that they are ever thinking about stopping the run. The way Bo Nix is spreading the ball out consistently at that organization, I just don't know that the run game is ever something that a defense is like, let's game plan around stopping this. So I think that's going to lead to a more efficient experience. But to me, if anyone is this year's Tajay Spears, I think that's Bucky Irving.
Okay.
So I'll say Tajay Spears, James White. I don't think he gets picked until about round 3 or 4, but
yeah, he's around 3-4 type day.
He's an exciting player in my opinion. So
yeah, I do have in my tier 3. So I have tier 3 with technically 3 other players, but I get what you kind of did. So essentially, we're kind of in the same facility here, same range. I do have him there. I mean, look, Bucky Irvin is hard for me because nothing necessarily jumped out to me saying he's an amazing player.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think tier 3 onwards, you could call tier 3, tier 5, honestly.
Yeah, I think, and that maybe we should preference for the rest of these guys. None of these guys, the rest of these guys, in my opinion, from what I'm going to be saying on my standpoint, jumped out to me. Okay, Bucky Irvin is just like every other running back. To me, they just all have different traits. They all have, okay, Bucky's a little bit smaller, that can catch, that has decent speed, that can do all these things. Nothing really excites me of Bucky, but the profile does fit, the traits does fit what the NFL caliber type team is potentially looking for when they're looking for someone like small, agile, quick, that can move, that can get into space, that can catch. Someone like a Tajay that, for me, I wasn't necessarily excited coming into the season for Tajay, but you can see how he can be utilized later on down the road.
Yeah. I definitely hear you. I think, again, like tier 3, I think there's a big drop. I'll say this. I think tier 1 and tier 2 are guys I'm considering in the first and second rounds, probably late first, second rounds of Dynasty Superflex drafts. Okay. I think tier 3 is now the guys that you consider in round 3 onwards, unless there's some sort of impressive draft capital that kind of comes out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do like Bucky. Again, kind of trying to find those players that can give you a little lightning in a bottle. I think he is one of those names. I'll move on to tier 4 here. Mm-hmm. I really love this kid. I just hadn't taken a moment to really dive into his film. I've watched games of him, and I think when I dove into the film, I was less and less impressed as I watched. That is Braylon Allen.
Okay.
Braylon Allen is... Look, anytime a 17-year-old kid puts up over 1,200 yards and double-digit touchdowns in college, it's like, how do you not get excited about that? But what I've found recently, Badaki, and you and I are trying to get better every year as we do this, is I think in Dynasty, getting ahead of yourself in scouting is actually potentially harmful. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the reasons why I was misguided with Zach Evans last year. Honestly, I'll just hold my hands up and say that. Because I started scouting Zach Evans before the 2022 season. I was scouting him in 2021. And those things that I loved about him carried over into my scouting process.
Right.
And I just think it's something that if you play Devy, it's going to be very difficult for you to take away what a player has done earlier in their career based off of what they are now. And you and I made a very intentional effort. And in fact, I didn't watch any 2022 film. I only watched 2023 games.
Yeah, agreed.
And I did that specifically because I want to know what the player is now. Players change weight. They have injuries. And NFL teams are looking at, what are you now? It's great that you did that earlier, but what are you now? And with Braylon Allen, what he is now to me, look, he's the strongest running back in this class, no question. 6'2", 245 pounds. The strength is not a concern. Like, the strength is clearly his best attribute. He's the strongest running back I've probably scouted in the last 3 classes. You could call him Hulk. You can call him Juggernaut, Colossus. The dude is a huge human being moving at impressive speeds. He's a good downhill runner. But here's my issue with a guy like Braylon Allen, is there is almost no versatility in his game.
No.
Think about how Braylon Allen is going to be used in the NFL. I can only think of a specific role for a player like Braylon Allen.
Goal line type.
And that is a short yardage back, first and second down. But I don't see him being used as a third down guy. I don't see him getting many receptions. I think his burst, his short area quickness, his versatility, all that is very limited. As fun as it is to imagine this 250-pound man just bulldozing over NFL defenders, I'm concerned that there's a huge lack of dynamic ability in his game. He's very stiff. He doesn't move well laterally, doesn't have a calling card to make a guy miss in the open field outside of his strength. And if you think about it, today's NFL is all about getting your running back in open field. Yep. And if you put Braylon Allen in the open field, I don't believe it's going to do much for you. And I know he's 250 pounds, but that is kind of hurting his elusiveness. When he was 17, he was around 230, I believe. And that was a much better weight for him. He moved much better as a freshman than he did this year. What I'll say is my biggest concern with him is I don't see any home run hitting speed. I don't see any sort of burst that's impressive. I know I'm probably being harsh because he's 250 pounds, but he's not an impressive athlete to me. And if he's going to be successful in the NFL, he has to be like a Derrick Henry where a team is building their offense around him. And I don't think there's a very high percentage chance that happens. In today's NFL, I just don't see that happening. The last thing I'll say is I use an NBA term to project how he could be successful. Okay. And it's volume shooter. If he is successful in the NFL, it will be because he's a volume shooter. You know, Derrick Henry is special because he wears down an NFL defense over the span of an entire game. But how many carries do we see for Derrick Henry that go for 1, 2, 3 yards? It's quite often. So he's going to need 20 carries to kind of really give you those splash plays. And I just don't know that he's going to get that with his lack of athleticism. So I don't think he's going to make many people miss. I don't think he's very shifty behind the line of scrimmage. His vision is questionable. My ceiling comp for him is like a Michael Turner, Brandon Jacobs. I don't think he's as physical as Brandon Jacobs. But I more see him as like a Latavius Murray. And Latavius Murray was very valuable as a younger back and like a Deonta Foreman. I see a short yardage, goal line guy. But with the way the NFL is moving, I just think someone's going to have to say, I want to build my offense around that guy. And I don't think anyone does that. So maybe I'm too harsh, but just got to be honest.
I can understand the concerns. I like Braylon Allen as a talent. When I watched him, it was just like I was watching film when I was 10 years old. You know, I was watching, like you said, the Brandon Jacobs, these big body dudes that run your offense. Now, the reason why I like him, because I do believe there are certain teams out there that are going to be drafting him. I don't think any team is just going to draft a 250-pound guy just because, you know, like I don't see the Eagles drafting him or, you know, or the Miami Dolphins drafting him because they utilize backs in specific ways. It's a very specific type of player that needs to go to a very specific type of team. And I think that's where I see hope in it because if you don't have if you don't have the Lamars, the Patrick Mahomes on your team and you have more of a pocket passer type of quarterback, he can shine because you can see where he can be utilized, right? You know, you think of, I'm not comparing him to Josh Jacobs, but I think of the situation, right? If Josh Jacobs wasn't no longer on this team going into next year with the question marks at quarterback, looks like they're going to be they're winning a couple games. He can fit there with the Raiders because they are pounding the ball. Same thing when you think of, you know, the Tennessee Titans, if they continue to do something like that. There are certain teams he can fit into that I really like. And if he doesn't fit into that mold for that offense, then Braylon Allen is not going to be somebody that I love. One of the things I like about him, kind of things that you already mentioned, it wasn't the physicality, but the strength, the big body movement down the field, I like a lot. And what's crazy is that he does get opportunities in the air. It's not exciting. It's not big plays.
To me, that's more of an indication of Wisconsin's offense than it is his ability as a pass catcher. But
for me, it's like, okay, I'm seeing the targets. I see the ability there. He could catch the ball. Now, is he going to catch the ball in the NFL? Probably not, depending on the offense. But for me, I guess in the sum, because everything that you said, I do believe is very true. It's hard to envision him in this sort of NFL. But if he goes to the right team, it can be very successful here. He can be a 4th-round guy going to the New England Patriots, hypothetically, who drafts a pocket passer quarterback. or gets a Jimmy G back hypothetically, right? And then you know that they're pounding the ball with Braylon Allen. So that's what excites me, is hoping that he gets into a team that can be fantasy relevant for him.
So I'll just quickly note one of the things that you said. You said, you said one of the things I love about him, it's not his physicality, it's his strength. That is concerning for me. And I agree with you. Like, I think he shows physicality, but I don't think he's the most physical running back in this class. I don't think he plays as physical as a Blake Corum, as crazy as that sounds. They're two polar opposite, body types.
And I think that is something that he's going to change.
That strength is not utilized the way that it always should. I know he's been injured. I know he's been injured. I'll give him credit. Again, like, guys, if you go watch his rookie year, you're thinking this kid could be the next first-round pick. But I don't want to judge off of that. And he is 250 pounds. He's no longer 230.
I think they're going to make him lose weight.
I hear what you're saying.
They're going to make him lose weight.
I think he can lose weight too, but I think it's more difficult to lose the muscle. That's not true. I mean, look, he can. It's going to be complicated.
I think a team is going to come in and be like, look, I like what you did this year, but look how much more burst, look how much more whatever that NFL team that he saw in his rookie year or his freshman year, right? And I think that's what teams are going to end up doing because Let
me ask you this: if you take away his stats in his first 2 years, and if you change him from 6'2", 250 to 5'10", 215, and you watched his film, would anyone even talk about this player based off this year's film? And I know I'm taking away all the aspects of his physicality, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
I think that's difficult, but I get what you're saying.
There's really not something special other than the pure, ridiculous, Hercules human that he is.
My thing is,
last thing I'll say before I hand it over to you is, I think everyone and their mother is going to compare him to Derrick Henry and say Tennessee is a perfect spot. Guys, do you think anyone wants to model Tennessee's offense? Genuinely, I'm genuinely asking. Is any offensive coordinator or GM looking at Tennessee's offense in the last 5 years when Derrick Henry has been on his tear and said to themselves, you know what? I would like to replicate that. I can't imagine any GM saying that. That concerns me about a player like Braylon Allen. So that's the last thing I'll say. But
I get what you're saying. I think one of the things I was going to say, but even if you were to add the physicality, I don't think it was going to change it because that is not the way the NFL is moving either. Just because you are a big, if you're 240 pounds and you are physical, you have the Brandon Jacobs physicality. He's going to put everything that he has into every single play. Then I don't think that changes his narrative here. I don't think that's going to help him. I think what I'm trying to understand now that's probably clicking is that he's going to lose weight. They're going to utilize him in ways that we weren't expecting, but they still love that he's big. He's going to be the goal line guy. He's going to be the short yardage guy. Is he going to be the first and second down guy? Maybe as well. It all depends on the fit. Like I think of Pittsburgh Steelers as well, who love to run the ball. If Najee Harris is not there, not saying that he's not going to be there next year. I'm just saying it. But if he wasn't on that team, that's also a perfect fit because they still love to run the ball. Same thing with the Browns. They still love to run the ball. I totally
hear what you're saying. The funny part about that is they've just named Jaylen Warren their starter. They're moving away from that kind of game plan.
So they bring similar things a little bit.
No, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think anyone's excited about it. If Najee Harris was in this class, where would he be ranked? I wouldn't be excited about it.
He's also he's a crazy pass catcher though. I think that was the difference in college, where Braylon doesn't have that right now.
No, I think he's getting fed volume. But the next guy for me would be Devin Neal out of Kansas. Okay. I did enjoy watching Devin Neal personally. I don't know where you stand on him. I'll give you a second to let me know it here. But I think he's an extremely creative player. That was the first thing that I noticed about him. He is the sports equivalent of performance art. You guys ever seen performance art where people are like in the public and they're making art and they just push down all the trash cans? Like, oh shit, that's art. In live.
That's art.
Wow. He's the sports equivalent of performance art. He is making up his own route as he goes through traffic, and I thought that was very special. Okay. Elite change of direction. I know I said this about Marshawn Lloyd earlier, but to me, Devin actually has the nastiest jump cut in this class.
Yes, he does. 100%.
It is actually kind of like, I would be scared if I was defending this guy because any moment I'm a highlight play. The dude is literally teleporting from right to left and leaving the defender in a different time zone by the time his right foot is planted again. But my issue is I don't think he has the long run speed of a, let's say, like a Trayvon Henderson or a Trey Benson. You know, it's hard to compare those guys. But given his size, his athleticism, his elusiveness, I was a little bit disappointed with that. There's not like that third level to his speed.
No.
But he reminds me a little bit of a Khalil Herbert. I put as one of my ceiling comps, and like a Jeff Wilson. So I think he absolutely can contribute to a committee, but I don't see him ever being a superstar in the NFL.
Okay. Look, I like Devin Neal. He is in this tier for me. One of the things I think shined out for me was his ability to make people miss, his quick cuts.
It's crazy.
It was crazy. I was like, he's putting my guy on skates. Legit, go watch some highlights because it is genuinely like, I was like, I love this. But one of the things
how is that replicable
exactly,
in the NFL outside
exactly. I was like, and then I said, okay, but how? Okay, so I remember I talked about earlier traits. What other traits is my guy bringing here? Yeah. And I was like, well,
that's where it's tough.
It's tough because I can see how he can maybe excel in different areas and he can get taught and learn to do a couple of things. But something like you said, you know, he doesn't have like that next level thing. One of the guys I did want to talk about that I do have one tier higher, or not one tier higher, one spot higher. I'm not sure where you have him. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, and that is Ray Davis.
Dude, I love that you are talking about Ray Davis because I thought he would be like he is like my sleeper right now in the class.
100%.
Do you agree?
I love everything that I saw from Ray Davis. I mean, you think of, you know, a big, not even a big body guy, but, you know, okay.
He's 5'10", 216.
Exactly, 5'10", 216, coming out of Kentucky. He was playing with well, he wasn't playing with Will Levis, but he did transfer.
No, he wasn't.
But I love his strength. I love his physicality when he does play. Quick, decisive kind of opportunities for
100%.
that come for Ray Davis, and he doesn't waste any time. He sees the hole, he's hitting it, and that 100%. Was something different that we saw with, you know, we talk about Trayvon Henderson kind of jittering in the backfield, trying to make these quick
those guys
decisions.
Take advantage of their athleticism.
100%.
Sometimes it puts them in a bad spot.
100%. And that is something that I really love, and I call them Sweet Baby Rays because
I love that.
Sweet Baby Rays. That was my little.
Let's ride with that. Sweet Baby Ray Davis. That is beautiful.
Sweet Baby Ray Davis, and that was my nickname for him, because of how quick and smooth when he does. He also is very. He doesn't have an elite speed, but he's fast for a big guy. I felt he was.
I don't think his speed is anything to.
It's not. I'm not saying that he is a home run hitter. I'm not saying he has an elite speed. I'm not even saying he has good speed. I think he has an above average speed for his size. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's what I love about Ray Davis. I think a lot of people, we need to put shine on the guy because I like what he did here.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Ray Davis was going to be like my sleeper, so I'm glad we're on the same page. Ray Davis, beyond football, is someone that you just want to root for. I don't know if you know this, Badaki, but he was in and out of foster care throughout his childhood.
No.
He was homeless for a time. He is one of those guys who just made everything happen for himself. A guy that you want to root for. You know, got himself into football, had no parents, like in and out of foster care, got himself into Temple. Then he transferred to Vanderbilt, got into the SEC.
Yeah.
Then he transferred to Kentucky. Now, he is a fifth-year senior, so he is going to be an older running back entering the NFL, but he was a four-star transfer recruit, just the kind of guy that's like everything he's ever seen in his life, he has worked for, and that's something that I want to root for, you know, but one of the things that you mentioned, you said he's very quick and decisive, and that was my favorite thing about him. Quick, decisive planting, specifically his feet. It gives him an ability to make the man in front miss. It gives him an ability to never miss like an open lane. So I'm a big fan of him as well. I think he's got those sweet feet, if you will. So I'm excited to call him Sweet Baby Ray.
Sweet Baby Ray's with sweet feet. I mean, talk it up.
I think his athletic advantage, I don't think it's going to translate into the NFL. Okay. He has that advantage right now in college football, but I think it will completely evaporate at the next level. my ceiling player for him as a comp is Jalen Warren.
Okay.
I could see kind of him work his way into a rotation and be a kind of guy that everyone in the building falls in love with, does the hard work, comes prepared. My floor is a Boston Scott type of player. So I think he can contribute. He's a glue guy to a backfield. I just don't see a real scenario. Like, I think there's a 10% chance he becomes the guy for a team. So
yeah,
I do love Ray Davis, though. Fun guy to talk about.
I do love him as well. I would say, just to close it out here, I did have Jalen Warren. I also had someone like a Dameon Pierce. Was my comp for him as well. Somebody that, I love Dameon Pierce coming out. Obviously not the best situation now, but he has to go into the right offense. Somebody that can get into a good situation and can run the ball, like we saw with Jalen Warren, like we saw with Dameon Pierce in the first year. And hopefully grow in that role as well. So yeah, I love Sweet Baby Rays.
I love that. All right, let's go into tier 5. Maybe we won't talk about the rest of the guys as much in detail. We'll get other moments, but I have Audric Estime in tier 5, and I was really excited to scout him, and I couldn't have been left more disappointed personally.
Okay.
I don't believe Estime does anything at an elite level. I don't think there's a single thing you can point to at his game. Maybe his physicality.
His physicality is
but I wouldn't say it's elite. I wouldn't say it's elite personally.
No.
I think he can handle 20 carries, but I don't think any of those are going to be very explosive plays at the next level. Similar to like a Brian Robinson. Now, I know Brian Robinson just had 2 catches for like 60 yards, but I just mean like when we were scouting him coming out, and for most of his first year, it's like, okay, he's handling carries, but there's not much explosive traits there.
Yep.
A.J. Dillon, for example, right? Like a Hassan Haskins, for example. So just a player that's big, that's physical, but is, when we talk about how stiff Braylon Allen is, this is like another level of stiff. This is like another level of lacking twitchiness or suddenness or any sort of like make you miss ability. There's no acceleration or burst. Definitely not a home run hitter. I just don't think. I don't want to be rude. I think he's like a practice squad guy.
I was gonna say
I'm not sure he gets drafted. Maybe he does in like the 6th or 7th round.
Exactly. I was gonna say I'm not sure if he gets drafted. The only reason why he does get drafted is because of his physicality, but
his production.
Once again, who needs something like that? Unless a team is going to be does Miami draft him because they need a goal line back and they don't want to run with Devon anymore? Like, when does he come in at any point in time with the physicality? And I just don't see it, because he doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have anything. He is a first and goal on the 1 yard type of guy, and he's going to punch it in, and that's it. Thank you so much, Audric.
I agree, and I would just say, like, I think this is where, if you're not watching film, the stats will lie to you almost, because I mean, he has 6.2 yards per attempt. That's 13th amongst running backs who have 100 attempts or more. He's the 8th graded PFF runner. His yards after contact is high. His elusiveness rating is high. He has put up almost 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. But I feel like any NFL team that dives into the tape is going to be like, that is great for what you're getting in college, but this is a different level. And I will be happy to hold my hands up and say I'm wrong. I mean, if Audric Estime tests incredibly at the combine, we have got to take him seriously. But I just don't think that he will. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Next player I would have, and I am so incredibly devastated about the next 3 names. I was very excited about them in this class. They were going to be key pieces. Probably most of them, one of them a first-round pick in my mind. For Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts. And a couple of them maybe second rounders, but they have fallen drastically without any grace. Donovan Edwards, Will Shipley, and Raheem Rocket Sanders. It is genuinely devastating to me that Rocket Sanders, that nickname, is not going to be someone that I'm excited about. Honestly, with Raheem, we have our scouting grades, Badaki. I didn't feel like it was fair for me to give him a scouting grade. I don't know how to evaluate this player at the moment. I loved his 2022 film, but so much has changed in 2023. Again, another reason why I think it's harmful to scout too early for a class in Dynasty. But a couple things, his injuries, he's only played 5 games due to injuries.
Yeah.
His play weight, he gained about 15 pounds from last year. He doesn't look anywhere near the athlete that he was last year. It's like he's a completely different player from 2022 to 2023. In his most recent game, he had 8 carries for 0 yards.
Yes, I had that in my notes.
And a fumble. I have no idea how to evaluate Raheem Rocket Sanders right now, but I can tell you this is a player that is dangerously close to being undrafted based off what we've seen so far this year. As far as Will Shipley goes, he's put up a ton of production, but man, there is just nothing that impresses me about this athlete. There's just he's a good pass catcher. He's a highly sought after recruit out of high school, but there's just nothing special to me on film. And as far as Donovan Edwards, could there have been a bigger fall from grace for Donovan Edwards? He is probably the worst player through strength of any running back in this class. And I say that as someone who liked Donovan Edwards coming in, the Don, if you will. He's not small, but he plays small. He plays like he's 180 pounds. And his analytics are awful. Through 10 weeks, not including week 11, he is 171st in yards per attempt. By the way, this is out of running backs, 172 running backs with 70 attempts, because he hasn't even had 100 attempts. Yeah. So keep in mind as I'm reading these numbers, guys, this is out of 172 qualified running backs. His yards per attempt is 171st. His PFF run grade is 169th. His yards after contact per attempt is 169th. His missed tackles forced, 171st. His breakaway percentage, 171st. His elusive rating, 163rd. I don't think there's been a bigger fall from grace than Donovan Edwards this year.
I actually...
So yeah, those are the 3 names that I'm really disappointed about.
Yeah, for all these guys, it's pretty difficult. The 2 specifically with Raheem and Donovan, because, you know, let's start off with Raheem. Injuries have been hurting him. I'm not necessarily sure if he is somebody that should be going into the NFL draft this year.
I agree. He should come back.
And I also would probably say the same thing with Donovan Edwards, since now
100%.
With Blake Corum 100% going into the draft. Yeah. I mean, you have to think about both of these teams and how, you know, Raheem out with injury. You know, what have we seen from him so far this year, right? 2, Donovan Edwards, he's the RB2 on this backfield. He hasn't even had 100 attempts in the last, the 11 games that we've seen so far, or 10 games we've seen so far. He hasn't been utilized in a lot of opportunity. When he has been, he's been pretty bad. Right. Yeah. I mean, you look at, you know, his average per carry is 3.4 right now in 4 games. And one of the things you always say, you think of somebody that is a backup, he should be getting those bigger yardage and stuff. Like, obviously, it's maybe different in college because it's a run heavy.
Much more efficient as a backup.
Yeah, it's to be much more efficient. That's not the case here. So for me, just to put in summary really quick, because we don't want to spend too much time, I think both of these guys should be staying in the college. Should be staying in college for another year. I mean, Will Shipley here. I'm not sure if he gets drafted personally. He looks more of a practice squad type of guy, unless he tests really amazing in the NFL Combine, which anything can happen.
I don't see that happening, and I agree with you. And Donovan Edwards, Raheem Sanders, I'm 100% on board with you. I think they will only hurt their career if they declare this year. Yeah. So. Let's make tier 6 really quick. I don't think we need to talk about any of these guys in depth. Jace McClellan, the back out of Alabama, there's nothing super special about him in my opinion. Jalen Wright was actually quite fun to watch, as well as Taj Brooks. We won't go into detail on them, as well as Carson Steele, the transfer to UCLA. He's a big body. Taj Brooks is a big body, but he moves a little bit different than the rest of them. So I'm excited about these guys, maybe as sleepers, if you will. Jace might get the Alabama bump. And then running backs to monitor, we'll go Kendall Milton, Jarquez Hunter, Mian Williams, Chip out of Ohio State, Amani Bailey, and Jacavius Marks, I'm not sure how to say his name, and Martrell Johnson Jr. I don't think we really need to spend time on any of those names, just guys that you should be aware of. Maybe one of these guys becomes a sleeper and we take them more serious and put more time into scouting them. But I am kind of surprised.
Sorry, I have a sleeper.
Similar. You have a sleeper? Go ahead.
I have a sleeper. I don't want to spend too much time or any time at all. When I watch these guys film in brief with the running backs to monitor, Emil Bailey was the one that stepped.
Amani Bailey?
Amani Bailey was the one that excited me because of his traits. Remember, we're thinking about traits, pass catching ability. He's also, in my opinion, he has decent speed as well, elusive at times. And, obviously he needs to work on his game as well, but just somebody to throw out there for you guys as well to keep in mind.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. To me and Williams and Chip, if they weren't at Ohio State, I don't even think we're even discussing their names.
I agree. I was like, what's happening here? I was like, I had a thought process. I was like, damn, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I was hoping. I was like, okay, Ohio State guys, I'm looking. I'm coming for you. Yeah, I wanted to check it out.
A pretty big meltdown this year compared to his previous years, but I am kind of shocked how on board we are with this class, because that is the exception for us.
It is.
It's not common that we're this across the board.
And now that we kind of got through it, I kind of said I'm not excited for these guys. I think you can kind of see here the top 3 guys I'm really excited for. I would say my sleepers.
I would say the top 5 I'm excited about, but mostly the top 4.
Yeah, I would say my sleepers is Ray Davis.
Same.
I think it's really just Ray Davis, and I will probably put Imani Bailey in there as another throw-in, hoping that he kind of improves, and maybe we'll see what testing looks like. But other than that, it's like, okay, if you can get any of the 2 top 3 guys, and that is Travion, and or Marshawn Lloyd or Blake Crom, I'm assuming for you, then I think you're kind of set here if you in a dynasty perspective. But if not, I'm not looking at any of these running backs. I think of the NFL year rookie drafts, 3rd rounder guys, 4th rounder guys, just to take a shot on because they're on a team that you like, maybe in a good situation. Other than that, I'm not necessarily sure we're going to see, a big production from this class.
I'm definitely on board with you for Ray Davis as a sleeper. I would mention the 2 names of Jalen Wright and Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks is a big body guy, but he just moves different. I believe he's 230. Him at 230 looks like a guy at 215, and that's impressive to me. Mm-hmm. And I also like Jalen Wright. He's been quite efficient, but he's not been. It's been in a rotation, so it's tough to gauge. But guys, that was a very long video.
That's a long one.
I hope you enjoyed watching it. That's maybe the longest ranking video we've ever made. But there's a lot to say. I hope you enjoyed it. Do us a favor, hit that like button. We will be releasing more and more 2024 content. If you want our Dynasty updated rankings, use our promo code LAND and go support us on the Flock Fantasy website. That promo will get you 30% off. And you also have access to our rankings, Dynasty Superflex, 1 quarterback, a bunch of articles on the 2024 class are coming up soon. So go check it out. We appreciate you. And we'll see you in the next video. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.